Hey, it's GamerK, and we just got Season 7 of Game of Thrones, Episode 1. So I'm going to break it down, review everything we can see from it, tell you my thoughts and comments, have a nice discussion with you guys in the comments and stuff like that. But first... So we begin the episode on a really strong note. The way the actor crafted the entire scene made us know that Arya was behind there. Something in his eye, something was a little bit off with his acting. And we saw him die last season, that was a little bit help. And so it made the entire scene so tense. You were just constantly leaning forward, waiting for the moment you knew was coming. And it did not fall short. It was a really strong way to set off the episode. It gave us something we really wanted straight from the start and set the tone for what the season could be like. I must say the highlight of the scene was when Arya turned to the wife and was like, "I'm not going to waste good wine on a woman." It was perfect. It was everything you wanted. It was cosmic justice. It was crude and nasty. Showed you why these people deserve to die, why Walder Frey deserved to die, and it was absolutely well executed. So next we get Bran and Meera finally arriving back at the wall. Now the scene itself was actually really cool. I really liked the way that Meera was just absolutely destroyed and knackered from carrying Bran so far. I would have hated it if the show just totally ignored the fact that she had carried someone for the last week non-stop, all the way through the snow, with no food or water. And the one line that Bran got was so impactful. It totally blew Dolorous Ed's mind. And he was like, yeah, let's go inside. I've actually really liked Bran last season, and he's getting more and more of an important character, and I can't wait to see more of him this season. He's one of those characters that's going to get very interesting, as what he has to overcome becomes bigger and bigger, and it should be really cool when he finally reunites with the other Starks. But it's still really sad that Hodor's not there anymore. So we head up to the north where we get our first setup scene of many, where all the different players of the next war to come start to prepare their plans of defense as winter has arrived. And of course, Jon first starts pushing the White Walkers and how they need to prepare for that. Now, I've really quite enjoyed a lot of the discussions we've had around this kind of table with the Northmen and stuff. It's always been really interesting. But one thing I haven't seen is anyone push back on the White Walkers, in any meaningful way whatsoever. Now, with Jon being king and him having all that influence, and there being so many witnesses to what happened up north, I can understand if they will be able to convince these people who haven't seen the White Walkers that they actually exist. But I would like to see that convincing. I don't just want to imply that they're being convinced. I want to see it. It's bad writing just to imply this kind of stuff. If I can't imagine how he could possibly word that, then I need you to articulate it for me, not just to make it up in my own head. I really hate it when shows imply that someone's being caught up on information. I want to see them get caught up on information and how they react to that, not just assume they've got everything under wraps, because I don't know how much Sansa believes Jon. I don't know how much the Lords believe Jon. I don't know if Littlefinger believes him or what he's going to do about it or anything. Then Jon proposes that every man, woman, and child learn to fight to prepare against the White Walkers, which at first is like a victory, yeah. The women have the right to fight and defend themselves, great. And then they realize they're coming against this, then you can fight for us if you want to, there's no rush. But that policy definitely made Jon seem like more of a good guy than he already was before, so they're definitely just hammering on, Jon's a good leader, he's got some modern values, he's gonna work for his people well. Then we get to the UNDERMINER! Now the relationship between Jon and Sansa is so interesting. It's constantly on test with jests and lighthearted jokes and then serious remarks, and I never know where they're quite standing. They'll always kind of argue seriously, then make up, and they seem to be united against Littlefinger and some of the other people, but Sansa's putting on the pressure really hard right now, so that will be a really interesting thing to still watch all the rest of the season. I've made tons of videos talking about what I think about Sansa, Jon, and Littlefinger's relationships, so I'm definitely going to be looking more and more at that area, and I still think that Littlefinger's going to die very soon. But I must say that what Jon actually did with those two children was so smart. I don't think he knows he was making a smart decision. I think he was just trying to make an honorable decision, but it was actually a really, really good, smart decision in terms of making sure he's got those allies for the next couple hundred years. Those children must be scared shitless. They were just at the laugh house, whatever they are, so young, just kind of minding their own business, and they get a letter saying that their family members have been killed. They started with Roose Bolton, and they lost. And now the new king in the north has summoned them to his Winterfell to pass judgment over them. and their family. Oh, by the way, you're the new lord, so you're responsible for this family now. Off you go. My god, they would be fucking ugh. And then Jon stands up for them and their rights in front of all of his lords when they're happy just to take away their homes and give it to new people. It's going to make them so loyal, not only to the Starks, but to Jon Snow himself. Well played, sir. Then we had this scene between Jaime and Cersei, where Jaime finally starts to talk about what happened in the last season, with episode 10. And we see him kind of distancing himself from Cersei a bit. He's not give up on her, he wants to help out. He wants to be there for the Lannister name, he wants to be there for Cersei. But he understands that what she's doing is wrong, he doesn't agree with it, and he wants to go a different path. And this will probably erode with their relationship more and more and more, up to the point where eventually when she goes full crazy at the end of the season and tries to burn down the Red Keep, he'll be the one to finish her off. I've covered this entire theory in another video if you want to watch it here, but I'm really seeing the early signs for that already in episode 1. But other than that, Lena Headey is just so amazing at insulting people. I could listen all day to her just listing off insults of every single character. It was so good.
Arya's sand and her brood of bitches. Olenna, the old cunt, and that murdering whore Sansa stands beside him.
So I'd love to talk about all the awesome stuff that happened with the Euron scene and Jaime and stuff, but I'm going to make a separate video breaking down all of that later on this week, so I won't cover it here. Now, unlike some people I know, Carmine, I really enjoy some of the Sam scenes that we get by himself. He's a really intellectual person, he's quite funny a lot of the time, and he does a whole bunch of really awesome comedic stuff. And his actor is actually really good at portraying Sam. Now, unlike a lot of people who didn't like the montage scene, I thought that was pretty hilarious, to be honest. And then we got Marlon, who was absolutely incredible. I can't wait to see more of him this season. He was exactly how I wanted him to be. So it really seems that Sam's whole storyline is going to be a lot of comic relief and like information giving to the audience, as well as a lot of foreshadowing we saw here. Like we saw the cat's paw blade that was in the book that Sam was flipping through. That's supposed to be a little bit of a homage and a foreshadowing to kind of bring that back into the spirit of people's minds. So when Sansa fucking kills little thing with it, we'll recognize where it's from and why it's important. One thing I did really like about this whole Sam beginning part was how he wasn't immediately given maestership. I would have hated it if he just kind of skipped immediately maester or they all believed him. Him being treated like an acolyte and having to do all the terrible jobs and stuff was really suited to what actually the Citadel would treat him like. And the fact that he has to like sneak into the behind the scenes and steal books and learn in the shadows is quite cool as well. So it should be cool to see a lot more information coming out of there and what other stuff he comes up with in the future, as well as his interactions with Jorah. A nice scene we got this season was with Arya and those soldiers she met on the road. It's good to see that there was actually some soldiers that were genuine people and not like all rapists, murderers and killers. But more importantly, revealing her plan to go to King's Landing and kill the Queen showed us that she's not really come back home yet. She's more focused on revenge and killing her list, which will lead her down a dark path that she needs to somehow turn around from. Now I said in my preview breakdown that her possibly meeting up with Nymeria somewhere in the Riverlands would be a really cool way to kind of remind her of her home and where she needs to be, and it kind of motivates her to turn around and head back to Winterfell. Now a lot of people were commenting on Ed Sheeran being in the scene, how like it was kind of distracting and pulled him out of scene, which I kind of understand, because when I first saw him, I'm like, oh, that's Ed Sheeran, he's a musician, he's from the real world, he's pretty big. Oh, he must have done like a back dealing with Game of Thrones because he's a big fan or something. They were like, yo, we can give you a small slot or something like that. And he's like, oh yeah, I can do some singing for you. Oh, cool. And they do a back deal, he gets in there, gets to be a fan. And whilst I was thinking all that, I wasn't paying attention to the scene. Also, the armor they were wearing made it so their heads all looked like they were CGI'd on, which was quite funny. But other than that, I thought the scene was fine. So the last major thing we got this episode was the Hound and the Brothers Without Banners. Beric and Thoros are pretty interesting characters both in the books and the show, but they never were really characters that we saw much of or interacted with much, apart from in other people's storylines like Arya and the Hound. I was kind of skeptical of how they introduced the Hound in last season. I kind of felt like the way the books closed out his chapter was really nice and it didn't need to be opened again, but the way that the show's developing the Hound here makes me have a lot of hope for him in the coming season. It definitely feels like a really good storyline that I'm going to get well behind. Plus, the comic relief of the Hound is just on point every single time.
You've got real powerful magic to figure that out. Did the Lord of Light whisper that in your ear? It's snowing, Thoros. It's windy. It's gonna be a cold night.
Thanks for watching. Now you may have noticed that I've titled all the different scenes I talked about in this video along the side, and I want you guys to tell me your best names for these scenes and stuff. It can be more serious or it can be more joke-like, but I want to hear what you guys think we should call each of these scenes, just in the comment section below. Also, I'm doing a Q&A for everything from this episode to the preview and stuff later on this week, so make sure to send me your questions at my Twitter, which is @TWKingMckay, or on Patreon.
Hey, it's King McKay.